Hi you guys, I am Amy Rose and I'm the Program Director to Recovery Happens Counseling Services. I am beyond excited. So our program, we're an outpatient program for teens and young adults. We do individual counseling and we have groups. We have a parent support group that's very this lovely gem I'm going to start up with, that's me. Senior year in high school, I was the co-captain of the cheerleading squad at Mesa Verde, homecoming princess, and I'm stoned on marijuana in this picture. I was smoking marijuana by the time senior year every day if I could. I celebrated 15 years clean and sober in December, so I'm very grateful. Thank you. So it's a huge reason why I'm passionate about getting to work with teens and young adults. I got sober senior year 2 months before turning 18. And if you would have told me then that this was what my life would look like today, and this is what I'm doing for a living, and I have a beautiful son who is 9 years old and only knows a sober mom, it's just incredible. So I share a little bit of my story just so that you guys, we all have our own idea of what substance abuse looks like. What is an actual addict? What is an alcoholic? At what point do we need to intervene? And we formulate that based on our own experience and how we are as a person. But our kids are very different from us. They're built together differently. And if your experience as a parent was, well, yeah, I dabbled in stuff, but it was a phase, and I passed right through it, and I got on with life, and it was fine. That's not everyone's experience. Then the other thing, when we think of an addict, I'm absolutely a recovering addict alcoholic. And most people think, I know I did, like, how could that be my truth being a teenager? This is what teenagers do. But my drinking and using was not normal at all. But denial makes it to where we can normalize it, justify it, and rationalize it. And so I share my story to break down some of those barriers around, we think of an addict as being the low of the low, right? Maybe I'm trying to get parents to pay more attention when I'm mentioning marijuana, not being shocked once I use the H word, heroin, right? That's huge. And, when we think of alcoholism, we think, how could a teenager struggle with that, And we think of someone that's drinking on a daily basis, or a homeless person drinking out of a brown paper bag, and that's just not the case. Teenagers in general, they're addicted to intoxication. The name of the substance is an illusion. They like to change the way that they feel. And now, not all teenagers are obviously addicted to substances, and I'm going to get into all this going into it, but it's important to take a look at when is it going to a point to where it's more than just, okay, I went to a party and of course, maybe tried some stuff, but it's not affecting my life, and it's not the center focus of my life. So I'm going to get into all of that for you guys this evening. So first, we're going to dive into facing the truth, breaking down denial. Denial is one of the biggest things that teenagers and parents in the community, when I'm working with people, is one of the biggest hurdles. Because let's face it, denial is a cozy, warm bed to stay in. And if I don't have to look at something a certain way, hopefully it'll just go away or correct itself. But the deal is, I'm noticing that's not what's happening. If substance abuse is popping up and it's continuing to create consequences, it progresses. It doesn't just go away. And so some of the reasons why we have denial, first of all, no one wants, for our children, I know I have plenty, I don't know what you guys, but for my son, I have plenty of ideas for him and his future, little does he know. I'm going to have to face my own denial because he's going to pick, the future that he gets to have. But of course, if this is my child's story, we come from, I believe that alcoholism and addiction, it runs in people's families. That doesn't mean my son is automatically cursed. I hope not. God help me when he's a teenager. But if he is, of course I don't want that to be our story. Of course I don't want that to be, something that he struggles with. And one of the biggest things in parenting, it's like the one thing we want to do perfect that we're just never going to. And when we start losing control over things that are coming up with our kids, fear takes over, and we panic, and we do want to go into denial and think, well, this is just a phase, or we're grounding you and your life's over, and we think that, if we scare them enough, or shame them out of it, that it's going to go away, and that's just not the case. So I'm going to go over some tools for you guys and how to have these types of conversations with your kids. But think, for a teenager, denial shows up the same way, They have to think of it this way. If they're blaming you guys are always going to be the bad guys. I feel for you in here. You're not the messenger. You're the bad guys. And so they have to blame you and things around, and teachers get blamed, well, it's just my teacher doesn't like me, or they're just rude, or, I hear it all, and they have to point the finger so that they don't have to take a look at themselves, because if you have to take a look at yourself, you have to see something differently and then take action on that and making a change, and that can be scary. And then the other thing is when they start to surround themselves with other teenagers that are using the way they are, it now appears normal, right? When they're not taking a look at, no, some of your friends that you used to be involved in sports with, or you were doing other things with that didn't involve substance abuse, you pushed those friends away, and now you've surrounded yourself with ones where, the common denominator is marijuana, it's vaping, it's drinking, and that kind of thing, but it appears normal, And then they even have friends with parents, but that the parents have a medical marijuana card and are letting the kids smoke at home, and so again, that appears normal. And a huge reason for denial is shame and guilt, because and there's a big difference between shame and guilt. Guilt, I can feel bad about something, but shame is, I don't like this piece of me, so I have to keep it hidden, right? Because if I feel this way about it, how are you not going to feel the same way? So I'm going to get into some trends for you guys. In 2010, it was discovered that it's more likely for a teenager to try marijuana for the first time over nicotine or alcohol. Is there any guesses out there why that might be? Yeah.
The availability, the laws, it's available, legal now.
Yeah, absolutely. The availability. When I come in and I speak to kids on campus, I kind of joke around with them and say if I dressed a little bit different and maybe a little bit younger, I could leave any campus with marijuana if I wanted to, or a connection on where to get it. That's how accessible it is. And even now, nicotine, you got to be 21, and as well as drinking. I have quite a few slides on marijuana, especially because of the legalization, and what I'm discovering is the community isn't as up to date around the potency of THC of marijuana today and what's happening, and this is huge. In high schools and in middle schools where we're seeing the start, of marijuana use. 8th grade, I don't know what that is. It's something about 8th grade where, sometimes it starts even sooner, but something about 8th grade, they have enough curiosity and then they try it. So this is showing 10th graders, 4% were using daily, 17% in the last month, and 28% in the last year. And then 12th graders, you see how that jumps. So here's the thing, and when I'm getting into these slides, what we're trying to do in talking to teens is get them to wait as long as possible. I know I'm not going to come into every school and get them all to hate marijuana and vaping and substances. They think it's, not all kids, but a lot of them think it's amazing and it's so cool. But, to get them to wait as long as possible, because the earlier they start in substance abuse, the more chances they have of developing, dependency around substance abuse. So this just goes to show you how that jumps if they start at a younger age and how the progression takes over. So here's a graph. The bottom part got cut off, but down on the bottom left, I wonder if that's nope, okay. Down on the bottom left, the THC potency in the plants, okay? In the 1990s, because that's what we had as plants. Even when I was in high school, plants, we didn't have wax. I'm gonna get into wax. But in the plants, in the 1990s, the THC potency was 3.96%. Today, it's 20% in the plant. You know, what's scary to me, so my son, he's in 3rd grade, and you notice how this chart, it continues to go up. It doesn't go down. You know, so what's terrifying for me as a parent is what is the potency going to be when little Brandon is in high school? You know, and a lot of times too, as parents, I hear them say, well, you know, I smoked pot when I was in high school. I'm sorry, but that wasn't a drug then compared to what it is today, right? I mean, today is, you know, such a generation of anxiety today. I hear it so much. I have anxiety, and marijuana helps with my anxiety. And there's something about the kids feeling like zombies. You know, the marijuana that they have their hands on today, that's what's happening. You know, they're very out of it. It's not, you know, where you think, oh, you know, because I hear it all, you know, oh, it's a plant, Amy, it's not a big deal, it's good for you, and it's like, yeah.
So, yeah, that's when, you know, a lot of them believe the myths. I call it the myths of marijuana. It's natural.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Oh, that means it doesn't have side effects, and that means it's not addictive.
Right.
Which are all lies.
Yes, yes.
But another thing that I hear a lot now is, and maybe you're going to talk about it already, and if you are, then just let me know.
Yeah.
CBT versus THC.
Yes, and I will talk about that. No, this is a perfect point. So medical marijuana, now that it's getting legalized, right? A lot of times people go, well, hey, it must not be that bad for us because doctors are prescribing it. Okay, the kids would not want to smoke what the doctors are prescribing because the doctors are prescribing high cannabinoid, low THC marijuana. THC is what makes marijuana a drug, and it's what makes it addictive. And you notice that's what's going up in potency, right? You know, I just shared a second ago, in the 1990s, THC in the plant was 3.96%, and today it's 20%. We haven't gotten into wax yet. This is just plants. So, you know, this is going to continue to go up. The THC is what's making them experience feeling intoxicated, and it's what's making them addicted to it. You know, but part of denial is, no, it's not that bad, it's not that bad, it's not addicting. It is. These facts that I'm sharing with you guys, they don't have these facts. That's why I'm coming in and sharing these with the kids at school. So here's another one I love showing the kids. So that picture to the left is a marijuana plant in the 90s. I don't know about you guys, but to me that looks like a house plant. Okay, and then you look at what our kids have access to today. Really? Haze, kush, skunk. Like, this is out of control. You know, that looks like something out of the jungle, right? And you know, again, now people are getting rights because of the laws changing, so they can start growing this stuff on their own property. And there's the legal way about this to do it, and then there's the illegal way, right? And the kids think, again, this is getting so glamorized to our kids, like this is such a cool thing. You know, and now when I'm talking to teenagers and they're telling me what they want to do when they grow up, what do you think I'm hearing? You know, oh, I'm going to, you know, get a piece of land and grow a bunch of pot and make all this. And I'm like, or I'm going to be a professional glass blower. I'm like, no, no. You know, but they think this stuff is so great. So, yeah, that puts it in perspective. Here's some pictures of some paraphernalia. Can anyone tell me, take a guess, that picture on the far right, what that is? Does anyone know what that is? Or want to take a guess? A bong?
Like cocaine or crack or something?
I love that you just said that.
Well, I saw the
Yeah,
Bernie.
yeah, no, you would think that that is for crack
Yeah,
cocaine.
what's a crack
It's
cocaine?
not. You know what it's for? It's for dabbing, which is with the THC wax. So that picture in the top left up there, that's wax. Now wax is 80% THC. So what our kids are doing There, on that picture, there's a special piece that's attached to the bong, and that's a butane gas lighter that they're using to melt down this wax. One hit off of that, you guys, gone. Like, we wouldn't be able to walk out of this room this evening from one hit. You know, and so you can imagine how addicting that is, right? And if you're getting a high, you just went from 20% THC to 80%. You think you want to go back to the 20%? No, I want the full effect. You know, and again, kids are normalizing this, and I'm kind of laughing when I'm talking to the kids and going, I'm sorry, but you're using a comment of, hey, it's just this plant growing in the, you know, ground that's so great for all of us. But, like, that's crack addict behavior, right? Like, with the, you know, so we have to talk about this really for what it is, but it gets normalized the more and more kids are doing it, and it now, and you can go on our website as well. I need to add a slide. I wanted to add one for the wax pens. So vaping, right? There's all these vaping devices that kids have access to, and I brought out my little hard drive here because one of them looks like this, and it's called a Juul. And they just puff on the tip of this, and they have the nicotine liquid in it. But here's the thing, so they have all these different levels of nicotine at these smoke shops, and the kids don't even have to go into the smoke shops. They can, because there are some smoke shops where they're selling to minors. Because, you know, they're in it for the money. So if they can get away with it, they're selling to minors. And they can buy different levels of nicotine in this liquid. So you can get some liquid that has 0 nicotine in it, okay? And then you can get the next lowest one is 0.3. Okay, but the kids are the juice that they're buying is 50. It's the highest level of nicotine in this liquid. And what they're saying, yeah, go right ahead.
You mean THC, right?
No, this is nicotine.
Okay.
Yeah, this is nicotine for vaping.
Okay.
And so they've got this nicotine juice, and they're saying, let's get nicked out. Right? Because when they puff off that 50 level nicotine, it's giving them a body high and making them feel out of it and lightheaded. Now, nicotine, we all know, is very addicting. And once you build up a tolerance to that, you got to take it to the next level. So they're taking actual nicotine, and they're called moke bowls, and they're mixing nicotine in with the marijuana and hitting it off of a bong, right? And this is getting them. Again, it's just another level of intoxication. Teens today, they're hooked on how intoxicated can we get and all these different creative ways. And I'm trying to, you know, a lot of us parents in here are, you know, I was at another school and they had some of the kids, and one of the moms said, we shouldn't have the kids in here when we're talking about this. And it's like, no, they already know about all this stuff. You know, we should actually have them come up and teach us the PowerPoint. You know, and it's scary, but again, we have to come together and be in the know and remove the shame around this. Our kids are not bad for being drawn to this. They're not bad. You know, this is what's going on for them, and they're curious, and they want to have a rush and feel good and change the way that they feel, but they get sucked into this. And so that's why I'm going to get into how can you make it safe to remove shame and talk about it. Yeah.
Someone just recently told me that the flavor that's being added to the vaping
Yeah.
is a flavor that is meant to be ingested, not inhaled. And when it's inhaled,
Mm-hmm.
it's creating what's called popcorn lung.
Yes, thank you
Are you
for
gonna
saying
talk
that.
about that?
No, yes, thank you. You know, it
I
is.
had no idea.
Well-
It's so much more dangerous
Yes.
than what
Yes.
smoking cigarettes can do
Yes.
for you. And the kids think because they're not having high
Right.
nicotine,
Right,
that the fruity flavor
Right.
is safe.
right.
And it's actually 10
Dangerous.
times more dangerous because the lungs don't repair themselves. They fill in the chambers
Mhm.
and they lose lung capacity. And that's something that cannot be reversed.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you just shared that because I don't have a slide on that, and I need to add that. Because you're absolutely right. There more and more studies are starting to come out because vaping hasn't been around long enough for people to fully know. You know, and my theory is this, something that we know is a kind of a negative instant gratification type of thing to turn to, it can't have zero consequence, right? If you think about it, instant gratification always has a consequence. It really does, even if it's food, right? Like if I'm constantly turning to sugary food, I'm gonna gain weight, there's a consequence. You know, so with this nicotine and the vaping, it's the same thing, but these kids are under the impression, or even adults, that this is so much better for me, and it just hasn't been around long enough, and the studies are starting to come out where they're releasing things on popcorn lung, and yeah, those are irreversible effects. And so, you know, I've had parents that come to our program, and they're trying to get their kids sober off of marijuana or other drugs, and they're going, well, they're begging me just to let them vape the zero nicotine, and so I went and got them that stuff. Now, you know, you would want to go, what are you thinking? You know, but when you're caught in a situation and you're desperate just for your kid to stop doing drugs, and they're trying to get us to, they want to bargain with you. They don't know how to sit with discomfort. You know, they're constantly wanting to turn to these different things to change the way they feel. They don't know how to regulate through their emotions. You know, yes, people struggle with anxiety, but in today, you know, most anxiety, what kids are talking about, that's just discomfort that they don't know how to, you know, allow themselves to connect to and use healthy tools like meditation or yoga or exercising, or, you know what I mean, different tools to allow it to pass.
Amy, are you going to get into some of the changes?
Yes.
Except the dabbing. So dab, wax, honey,
Yes.
they call it lots of things.
Yes, we're actually going to go into this
Okay.
right now.
Okay.
So here's a picture of wax being broken apart. That just kind of gives you an idea, and I already let you know it's 80% THC. And I'm going to get into edibles. So wax is also being used in edibles. Now edibles, the absorption time takes 45 minutes. So people are, you know, when I'm letting the community know that we have kids that are overdosing on THC, overdosing, you think, how is that possible, right? People don't think it's even possible to overdose from THC, and I'm going to tell you how it is. So what do you think, you know, if we'll just use addicted cheerleader Amy in high school, if I pop an edible and I don't feel anything in 15 minutes, what do you think I'm going to do? We're going to take more, you know, and with these edibles, first of all, our kids today, they don't have access to, I'm going to show you pictures in a second of the glamorized edibles that's being advertised at these smoke shops. They don't have access to that. So what they do is they're obsessing on YouTube and watching all these videos on how to make your own, and they're making their own, and they're not scientists. They don't know what, you know, the exact amounts and what should be put in there. And the other thing is, no matter what age you are, you don't know truly what your body, the amount it needs, you know, what effects are going to happen. It's kind of a coin toss. And so when they're overdosing, they're having panic attacks, and they're going into psychosis, and they're profusely vomiting and getting dehydrated and having to go in the hospital. But again, we're not hearing about this as much because of this shame. You know, this happens, and a parent thinks, okay, this is terrible, but hopefully they've learned their lesson now, and it's going to be past us now. You know, we don't want to talk about it. And the other thing is, we don't want other people judging our kids and going, oh, you know, that reaction. Oh, your child's one of them. You know, and it's like, no, you know, your child probably is too, and you just haven't found out yet. You know, they probably have a vape in the closet. You know, we'll get into that. So here's some pictures of some edibles. So here's something that's important to know. One dose of THC in an edible is 10 milligrams. Some of these edibles can have anywhere from 100 to 1,000 milligrams of THC in it, okay? And so look, you know, they're glamorizing these edibles. Down at the bottom, there's, you know, cereal, Cap'n Munch, Chronic Toast Crunch, like, what? You know, and the kids just think this is awesome. And again, they're going, hey, this is for medical reasons. You know, this is going to help me with my sleeping and my anxiety. Wrong. It's actually, there's studies shown that it creates more sleeping problems for people. You know, we get people that are medicating themselves, sleeping all day long, they're up all night, their cycles all over the place, right? And then when you get to a place to where I can't experience any discomfort, so I'm getting higher, I'm popping these edibles or vaping or whatever, Anytime you're not under the influence of something, your body's freaking out and you are starting to have like panic attacks and things like this.
Hey, Amy, real quick,
Yeah.
before we move on to the edibles. So obviously, just in a package that says, caffeine munch, we
Yeah.
can discern that.
Yeah.
What about the homemade stuff? Is there a way to tell the difference between a brownie and a brownie?
The scary thing is that there's not, right? Unless you open up the brownie, you'll see pieces of the marijuana.
You're looking for the
Yeah.
plant.
Yeah, they'll either put the plant in it, but even with the wax, that's how, if it's baked in there, there's no way of telling,
Yeah,
right? And so you won't know,
right.
and you'll only have to go kind of off of if you hear a kid talking about it or one that says something. But here's the other scary thing, because I want to be able to help with language being on campus for kids, because when someone overdoses and the kids all freak out and they don't know what to do, no one wants to get in trouble, so they hide it. But when that kid that's overdosing and is going into psychosis or profusely vomiting, they don't know how to treat that. They need to get an adult in so that they can go and get, medical assistance. Hash pops are another one. And again, that's tough because if you're like, oh my gosh, do I need to be paranoid about every sucker my kid has in their mouth? But the biggest thing that you can do as parents is just having the conversations, so even tonight when you go home or in the next couple of days, you can kind of talk about, hey, like this is what I learned about today going to your school. Like, what are your thoughts? What do you know about it? And again, it's not in a, accusatory tone. It's just to kind of have conversation and show that you can handle having that conversation with them and hearing what they have to say. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the effects on the brain with marijuana. This is a picture of a brain of an 18-year-old who's used 4 times a week for the past 3 years. And the truth of the matter is, if someone's been using for 3 years consecutively, they're using every day, not just 4 times a week. But this kind of shows you some of the dark spots and the holes on the brain. That is not good. The good news is that it can repair itself after 2 years and someone getting sober. But here's the other thing we have to realize with our kids. So they're not to get all nerdy on you, but our prefrontal cortex, our frontal lobe, is responsible for our values, our morals, our judgment calls, our ability to see outside of this time in our life. Us adults in here, when life's happening and it's stressful or it's scary, we have the capacity to step outside of the moment and look further and go, okay, this is rough right now, but I'm going to make it through it. I have these tools around me, I have support, or this is what I can lean out and do. Our kids don't have that capacity. That part of their brain isn't fully done being developed till 25, 26. And that is uninterruption from substance abuse. Substance abuse stunts that development. So a lot of us, I'm not going to have us all raise a show of hands, but we all know adults that are in their 30s and 40s and 50s, but developmentally they're still teenagers, right? I mean, I love my Uncle Dan, but Uncle Dan still lives with Grandma and very much is still like a 13-year-old, and he's been hooked on substances since he was in middle school, starting with marijuana. And that development, it's so sad to see what happens over long-term use. So, and so not even adding substances in, this part of their brain, if you think about all the stress and the pressure that's put on them in this time of their life right now, right? There's so much pressure on being popular and the way they look and social media and bullying that happens. It doesn't just stay at school anymore. It follows them all over their little smartphones. People are posting pictures on Instagram of, situations that happen at parties, and if a girl's passed out and drunk and they're posting the picture and putting all these negative comments. And can you imagine being that girl, finding that on there, right? And if you randomly hooked up with a boy and now everyone at school knows about that and what you're getting labeled. I mean, can you imagine feeling that, right? Yeah, I would reach out to substances too if it took that away, And so there's a lot that goes on for kids. And so even if they have a boyfriend that breaks up with them or a girlfriend or their grade isn't what it needed to be to hold a certain GPA to get into the college they're trying to get into, right? all of this becomes so much, and that development that I'm talking about, they have tunnel vision. They literally, when something like that happens, it feels like the end of the world for them. They're incapable of seeing outside of this time in their life. They don't even realize that most of the kids they're in high school with, I mean, it's all gonna shift and change, you know? Everyone's gonna go and do different things, you know? And so, some of the things, conversations you can be having with your kids, so attunement is huge. Attuning to your child is meeting them where they're at, right? And them getting to experience feeling like mom or dad sees and gets me. You know, so when you're sitting down with them and making it safe for them to talk about some of the stresses of being their age today, right? And the pressures and showing, hey, I can handle hearing that, and maybe you have tried smoking before, and I want you to be able to talk to me about that. What would that need to look like for you to feel safe telling me about that? You know, and even asking your child, what is it that makes you feel nervous or blocks you off from wanting to come to me and open up about certain things? You know, and wait, and you might think you know what they're going to say, but most of the time, we don't. You know, they say something completely different. So, you know, so again, this is huge. So alcohol. You know, alcohol, this is something that's always been around. It's never going away. You know, and it's crazy to me how kids, they know drinking and driving is bad. You know, I haven't heard a teenager tell me it's not bad for you, right? All teenagers know that it's bad, but yet it's still happening, right? And then not only that, we have parents. Most parents, you tell your kid, even though you know I would be mad at you, I still want you to call me. If you've been drinking, I will get up in the middle of the night and I will come and get you and you will not get in trouble. We tell this to our kids, but for some reason, they're still afraid and they're not doing that. You know, and there's Uber. You know, they could get an Uber, but the drinking and driving is still happening. And I'll tell you, so my family has gone through a horrific tragedy just this last July. My stepson, beautiful, smart young man, just got his license at Keller Realtor and selling real estate, and had everything going for him and didn't show signs of struggling with drinking and driving, and Frankie knew that drinking and driving was bad. But for whatever reason, he just turned 22, and he was out with his friends drinking, and him and one of his friends that was intoxicated, they both got in the car, and he crashed, and they both passed away in July. You know, and so it's like I say this story out loud, and the more it's like I always feel like I'm telling someone else's story. You know, I don't get a do-over with Frankie. You know, and I'm a drug and alcohol counselor, you guys. Look at what I do for a living. It doesn't matter. You know, it can happen to any of us, any of us. And so, again, it's like, okay, how do we get more involved? Yeah.
So my oldest daughter, she's now 27, and her senior year she started drinking. She had moved out of the house, was working as a nanny, in-home nanny, and her senior year, a boy that she knew very well, had been at a party. Anyway, long story short, he drove drunk and killed a mother of 3. Okay, so it's not just he lived. But it was the fact that he put someone else at risk. That was the kill. Do you think my daughter stopped drinking?
Yeah.
She didn't.
Right.
So that's my thing, is like,
Right.
if that doesn't,
Right.
I mean, I don't know where you know,
Right.
I mean, she eventually did, but I don't, only after she saw something happen to someone very close to her, but.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just curious, what are the effects, how's marijuana different with driving? Are you still?
I'm so glad you said that, because I was going to go into that next.
And
Here's
you tell
what's,
the blood.
here's what's scary. So we're working with the Placer County Police Department, and we go and we do down in Roseville, their police department, we offer these parent nights to the communities a couple times a month, and you can find this on our website as well, because they're free. You can come and get, you know, lots of resources provided to you. But we were talking with the police department, wanting to be in the know, like, what's happening now? Like, how are we deciding, how's the law deciding how, like, let's just keep it real. How high can you get and get behind the wheel? And they don't have those studies out yet. They don't have any of those implemented yet. So what they're doing is they're just doing field tests, sobriety tests. So if there's, just like with anything, if they have reason, if someone reports a car kind of driving all over the place, or they have suspicion, they'll pull them over and they'll have them do a field sobriety test. And if they fail that, then they'll, then they'll get DUI type charges. But they don't have anything as far as like alcohol. We all know you blow into the breathalyzer and there's a certain legal limit. We don't have that yet. And that's the other thing. Most kids that I talk to, they do not believe getting high and driving is bad.
Yeah, so a family member of mine,
Yeah.
not immediate family, but family member, she told my daughter that driving high helps relax her and heightens her awareness. And
Oh, yeah.
she's a better driver
Yeah, yes,
because of it.
right. See, and that's back to that warm bed of denial, right? I mean, if I'm set in my way and I'm a believer in something, I have to convince myself in all these different ways why I should keep it in my life. And so if I tell myself enough times, I'm even more aware. I get kids telling me, my grades have improved since I started smoking marijuana, actually. I can focus on my homework. And I'm like, you are full of it. And it's just insanity. They're going to say anything to be able to bargain their way into having this. So yes, no, it's
not just teenagers that do that.
Oh, well, no, it's adults too, yes, absolutely.
I get my best ideas when I'm alone.
Yes. So moving along, another substance I want to talk to you about is Molly. So Molly is a rave festival type drug. This is an upper. In my day when I was in high school, we didn't have Molly, we had ecstasy. And ecstasy was the garbage pill version of this, because ecstasy could be cut with all kinds of things. It could have, so Molly is pure MDMA. Now ecstasy could have a little bit of MDMA in it, and then it could have methamphetamines in it, heroin in it, crack cocaine in it, right? And so these kids, this is being glamorized, hey, let's take this and go to Coachella or Snow Globe. If you hear of these events, do not let your child go to those, please. They are drug-infested orgies, to be frank, okay? And there's no beating around the bush with that. And these kids are taking all these different pills. And now here's the other thing. How do we know that these pills, they are what they really are?
What's MDMA?
So MDMA is an upper. It heightens all their senses. And here's the other thing. Kids can overdose on this as well, and they can have anxiety attacks. They also can go into psychosis, depression, and memory loss. One of the biggest things for overdosing is they get dehydrated being on this stuff, because they won't remember. You're not hungry or thirsty when you're on this stuff. And again, the kids all act surprised. It's like, wait, the drug dealer might give me something bad? Yes. I'm sorry, the drug dealer doesn't have morals or values.
Yeah, it's what they lace in it.
Yeah.
To be the problem.
Yeah. And so the kids will just pop it in their mouth and then ask, hey, what was that? It's like, that's the insanity, right? So again, us being in the know about this, and in their mind, it's no big deal. They use words like everybody's doing it, okay? Or every time, always. And it's just not the case, And you don't have to get into a battle with your kids on whether something's good or not for them, because the bottom line is, they're not of age and it doesn't work for you. That's it. That lifestyle doesn't work for me. Does not work for me as your mother to have you go to these festivals where this stuff's going to be around. That doesn't work for me. And then they can be mad, fine. And I use it often as an example in parenting, when they were toddlers and they're in a parking lot, right? We have no problem as parents making them hold our hands, because we get that they don't have a capacity to know they could get hit by a car, right? And so even when they're throwing a fit and they're stomping and kicking, we don't care. What do? We pick them up and we force them. It's the same thing with the substance abuse, okay? In their minds, they think at this age that they know everything, we know nothing, and they know what they need. And it's just not true. So we have to go into this knowing that we don't have to agree. You can get mad at me. There's room in our relationship for you to even believe that you hate my guts. You know, but I'm going to do everything that I can to keep you from struggling with this, you know? Oh, wait, no. Okay. So another thing that's huge right now, do we know what in this room what lean is? Yeah. Yeah.
Cough syrup and soda.
Yes.
I was asking them like, where does the lean come from? And they're
Yes.
like, because you just lean over.
Yeah. So again, back to that zombie type effect that the kids love. They're putting cough syrup in with soda, and they're also putting it in with alcohol. They're also putting it on the blunts that they're rolling and putting it on and sealing the blunt that way with it. Again, another level of intoxication that the kids are liking to do. And then the other thing that's huge right now is Xanax, which can be referred to as Xanny bars, Xans. You know, if you listen to the rap song, I feel old right now, like what I'm about to say. I hate this. You know, you listen to the rap music these kids are listening to, you know, but the lyrics, they're talking about popping Xans. And the kids, they think this is amazing, you know, and they're, you know, repeating these lyrics and it's not. This is terrible, you know. So Xanax is a benzo, and then, you know, what starts out to be, and again, when we hear the H word, heroin, well, we don't just get started with heroin. You know, it starts with all these other things I'm talking about, and then where heroin comes in is they start taking different pills. Kids will start taking Xanax and Adderall first, right, to get through finals. This helps, you know, I could be functioning on Xanax. And then I'm going to take a Percocet. This is an opiate. I'm going to take Vicodin. I'm going to take Oxycontin, right? These things, well, now, these pills can be $10 to $20 a pill. They are made to make people addicted to them. Opiates. You know, we hear all the time about people that are not addicts, but they have an injury or some sort, and they go to the doctors and they're prescribing them opiate painkillers, and now they're addicted to these opiate pills. Okay, so what happens when a kid has an 8 to a 10 pill a day habit? Who can afford that, right? So black tar heroin is a lot cheaper, and we're just going to keep it a secret, and I'm just going to snort it. I'm just going to smoke it. It's not going to be bad because at least I'm not shooting it up. You know? And then our reality starts to look like this. And there's so much shame that goes into this, right? Like, because, you know, when we're thinking of heroin addiction, we're thinking that is the bottom of the barrel, the worst of the worst. And I'll tell you, I get young adults that are in between the age of 18 to mid-20s that are battling heroin addiction, and they're wonderful young adults. You know, but they got caught in the wrong path and down a vicious cycle, and they're, you know, humiliated, and there's so much shame, and they feel defeated, you know, because the withdrawals from this, I mean, you're talking really sick, you know, their bones are aching, they've got the cold sweats and fever, and just a little bit more to put in, and all that goes away. You know, it's a terrible vicious cycle, and then when you talk about it and you expose yourself, the look you see in people's faces, right? When you start to say this is what's going on, I mean, you just want to hide it and hope you can quit it on your own, and it's just not that easy. So, you know, our program, we work with people that specialize in opiate addiction. Yeah.
I just have to say one thing, because
Yeah.
I work in healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
There are even more people that go on Vicodin and Oxycontin every year and don't get addicted. It's not, people can use this stuff and not
Sure.
get addicted.
Sure.
Often people who do, if they didn't get addicted to this, it's likely they would become addicted to something else.
Sure.
Addiction and dependency happen in two separate parts of the brain. I know it's a big conversation right now
Sure.
in the U.S. and I think it needs to be talked about, but not everybody that uses these drugs
No,
is
absolutely.
addicted to it.
No, not in
And
medicine.
there is a safe
yes,
way to use them
yes.
and a not safe way
Yes.
to use it.
And I'm glad you said that, because there is medicine is absolutely useful and good for people, and even not even just painkillers, right? But like medication for mental health, Like, that is a necessity, and people do need to be able to have access to that. But when someone is wired for addiction, not everyone is gonna use this stuff and get addicted. But if you have a predisposition to substance abuse, the chances of that go up even more. Yeah, I saw another hand.
Just going back, was lean a drug?
Yeah, so lean is a codeine cough syrup. So that is, but you can't, kids, that's over the counter. It's pretty difficult to get their hands on that, but they can, and sometimes they've got, going into a friend's house and they're raiding that parent's medicine cabinet or their grandparents' medicine cabinet, right?
Codeine cough syrup.
Yeah, the
They buy it
codeine-
over the counter. You can buy it over the counter?
No, you cannot buy it over the
It's a
counter.
prescription.
Yeah.
And a piece with the Vicodin and all of that too is that the part of thinking about really monitoring kids' use. And not just their own, like if you're noticing, oh, they had that, they got injured doing a sport, they kind of seem to like that, now you need to pay attention to how much of the grandparents' medicine is
Yeah, yeah,
available.
yeah.
So it's not, people don't necessarily become addicted, but it's just kind of being aware, and quite honestly, it has street value. So
Right,
if your son or
right.
daughter suddenly has, or their friend suddenly has
Right.
some things they didn't have before, and, it's just being aware. Not necessarily saying these things are gonna happen, but it's like a heightened awareness, listening to key phrases, watching key behaviors.
I saw him.
Yeah, I just recall a couple years ago coming to Del Oro and listening to a similar session, and I remember one of the staff said the number one place to get their pills was at home on the ground.
Mhm.
And that was one of their tools, was to go home and make sure you and your family members
Mhm.
got, the
Lockbox.
Absolutely.
Or just get rid of them if you're not using them
Yes,
anymore. Just
yes,
get rid of them.
yes.
That's obvious, I'm talking about other, your family members, grandma,
Yes,
grandpa.
yes, yes. Don't throw
Absolutely.
them down the toilet. Yeah.
So, okay, I want to get into with you guys stages of substance abuse. Because it's like, okay, well, how do we know what to look for, or where are our kids at? Because again, even if a kid's using substances, this does not mean they're an addict, okay? So there's different stages of substance abuse, but I really want to repeat again, it's about being addicted to intoxication. The name of the drug is an illusion, okay? So stage one is the experimental stage. Now, oftentimes parents will think if they caught their kid, well, they're just experimenting. Well, here's the thing I hate to break to you guys. Chances are you caught them for the first time. But this is not the first time that they did it, okay? So who knows really how long or what's already gone on. But the experimentation stage is a one-time occurrence. It's the first time they use the substance. You gotta think of it kind of like when you try a new food. I only need to try eating it one time to decide if I like it or not, right? Like, I don't need to eat it 10 times to still figure out if I like it. Okay, so it's a one-time occurrence. And you have to also know some kids skip stages. They'll go right in from the first stage and go to the third one. But stage two is misuse. So this is infrequent use. This is maybe on a special occasion, after, for homecoming or on 420, the biggest pot smoking day out of the year, or for their birthday. There's a special occasion where they want to try substances or have substances involved. However, when consequences start happening though, they either walk away from it or they go into stage three, which is substance abuse. Substance abuse still is not dependency. And here's the other thing we have to keep in mind. All of our kids, they're all wired differently. I mean, just like us as adults, we're all wired differently. Some people err more on the side of caution. I was not wired that way, But some, kids, they'll go, hey, I'll try. Like I had a friend growing up, and we'd go to a party and sometimes she just wouldn't do anything because she didn't feel like it. Or sometimes she would get intoxicated. But if she would have gotten in trouble from her parents and they took the car away or her phone away, she would have walked away from it because it's not worth it to lose those things. Those are her freedom things. Me, I'm going, how can I go find a way to pass a drug test so I can keep using and still have my stuff, right? That's the big difference. So stage three is more of, you start to see their values start to change. They really start to form an I don't care attitude. Okay, now this can be typical teenage hormonal behavior anyway, so don't think your kid's on substances. They might just have, be going through their hormones. But you'll see consistency in inconsistencies. And that's what we gotta take note in, right? When there's, they're very prickly. And they do, things they used to be into, like for me, I did cheer all growing up. I got voted off the squad and, in the height of my addiction. And I'll tell you, my attitude was, I don't care. I don't even want to do it anymore. That's not me. That's not the real me, And I hear kids all the time, I don't even care about that sport. I don't want to go to college anymore. I want to be a professional glass blower. I want to get property and start, growing plants. Like, this is a problem when that starts to shift. But generally, when they're in that stage, when they come in and they do counseling or even get support on campus and they start taking a look at some resources that speak to this being an issue, they'll move out of it. You'll start seeing some changes. When we don't see changes, it's because then now we're going into stage 4, dependency. This is not when they're using every single day, all day long, right? I didn't have the I wasn't able to use every day. If I could have, I would have. But I had a mom that was no joke. I loved Dad. Dad was very codependent. And wanted to believe the best in me. But my mom, I had to really jump through some hoops to beat this woman. She was on it. Because I'm a mini her. She's in recovery, and she saw me coming from a mile away so my son's screwed too if he ever gets into this stuff. But, she made it really hard on me. When I'd sneak out, she'd take the door off the hinges. I'd lose the car. I'd lose the cell phone. They were randomly drug testing me. And I kept trying to protect my relationship to being intoxicated. I did not see marijuana being the problem. And my life became very much revolved around when I was going to do it, how I was going to do it, and the lengths I was willing to go to keep that in my life is what showed me I was in dependency. Someone that doesn't have that dependency, they're going to be able to walk away from it when consequences get bad enough. They're not going to want to keep that in their life. But when they're continually, pursuing that and protecting it and amping up even their anger. I work with a lot of teenage boys, and they're sweet boys, but man, the substance abuse has really made them volatile, right? I had these poor parents, they took their son's longboard away because that was his prized possession. Well, what did he slash? The mom's tires. And he thought, you took my transportation away, so I'm taking yours away. And it's like, what? And again, because he didn't want anyone messing with his substance abuse. He wanted to be able to, he would say, if you just let me smoke as much weed as I want, we'd have a great relationship. Mom and Dad. My grades would be great. You're why I have bad grades. You're the reason why this is an issue. I would do it right here at home where it's safe. Again, that denial.
Is that what parents are letting their kids do it these days? Because I have met so many parents that they, my daughter wants to come to your daughter's house, but I don't know you and I'm your daughter.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you need to make sure you know, I let my child smoke, but only at home,
Right.
where it's safe.
Yeah.
She's gonna do it
Right.
out, I'd rather her do it here.
Right.
And, she gets it from my husband, who buys it from a medical grade.
Right. Well, see, and that's the hard part because, there's parents out there, and I really don't want to shame other parents, that maybe they're using it for medical purposes or whatever, and then they find where they want to bargain with their kids because they want their kids to like them. It's hard being the tough parent. It's exhausting, and it's exhausting when your kid really believes that they hate you because you won't let them do this stuff. So of course, there's parents that fall into that, and then, once you start getting into that, it's a downward spiral, and it's like, at what point, wait a minute, I signed up just for this part of it. Now you're taking it a whole other direction, so it's tough. Here's just a graph to kind of give you an idea. The dark blue to the right of each of these little pillars that go up is with an individual that has substance abuse in their family. Okay, the light blue to the left of the pillar is an individual that doesn't have it in their family. So this just goes to show you a 13-year-old that starts using substances, even if they don't have addiction running in their family, they have over a 40% chance of struggling with substance abuse. And then when it does run in their family, they have almost a 60% chance. So, and you see how the chances of that go down if they wait longer before they start introducing this into their body. So our biggest message is we're trying to get kids to see, you know, this stuff's not going anywhere. Let's wait until you're older, you know, give yourself a chance, you know, to develop.
There'll only be more stuff.
Absolutely, exactly. So breaking down denial, how do you do that with your kids, right? Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
Sorry, I just, it involved, or, when you talking about like family history,
Yeah.
do you share that with your girls? Do you tell them that they have more likelihood?
Yeah, absolutely.
What if what?
So I'll tell you,
Take your grandparents down.
sure, but it's removing the shame out of it, right? Because I'll tell you, so I grew up in two really big families, and it was very evident, like, you know, family members, you know, on my mom's side, there's addiction and uncles that going in and out of jail, and Uncle Dan who still lives with grandma, like there's nothing normal about that, right? But when we're not talking about it, if you think about it as a kid, even when you guys were kids, we're left to develop our own perception and idea of what's going on, right? And so, and it doesn't, it makes you wonder what story is your kid going to tell themselves about the reality of something. And it's in the way of how we tell it, too. It doesn't need to be that we're tearing down this family member. It could be that, you know, and even with my son, when I'm sharing with him about certain family members that, you know, we're religious, and I'll say we need to pray for them. Like, they're struggling to make good choices, and when they use this substance, they're not a bad person because of it, but it's really hard for them to make good choices when they get caught up in that, you know? And then in talking about tools, you can continue to make it age appropriate. Like, I talk to my son about temptation all the time, and I've even already talked to him about nicotine, you know, and do you know they have candy cigarettes at the candy stores? Yes.
They haven't for decades.
Yes, so I thought the same thing. No, and I'll tell you, my son's one of those sons that picked out the candy cigarettes. So here I let my son go. He goes to Adventure Christian School. Doesn't matter, you guys, okay?
It's retro candy.
And at the Galleria Mall, in the candy store in there, I let him go with a friend and the mom. And I know the mom. I'm thinking this is fine, you know. Okay, you can go and have a play date. He comes home, and he's got the candy cigarette. Now, my first reaction here, I talk to parents all the time, don't shame your kids, don't shame your kids. And here I go, you know, what are you thinking? You know, do you not know what I do for a living? You know, and he goes, wow, Mom, I didn't realize you'd be this uptight about this. He's 9, okay? And then my first reaction to him, thinking, why would that mother think that that's, and I had to bring it back, okay, I don't want to shame the mom, you know, I don't know what she thought when the boys wanted that, but I was able to talk to him, use that even as a perfect opportunity to talk about how do we deal with temptation. If you were at that candy store and in your mind, you really wanted those candy cigarettes, you're not bad for that. I get it, that's exciting, that's fun to put that candy cigarette up to your mouth and blow the powdered sugar out, and you think that's fun. You know, but that temptation, the hardest part about it is because we know we shouldn't do it, but we want to anyways. You know, and can you imagine, the day is going to come, sweetie, where someone's going to have a real cigarette, and they're going to say, Brandon, try this. And you need to understand, you might want to try it. You're not bad for that. You know, but let's talk about ways that even though you want to try that cigarette, teaching our children how to play the tape out. Let's talk about, because how, you know, connecting them to their bodies. When you did that, and I had that reaction, how did you feel in your body? And he said, oh, I felt sick in my stomach. That I disappointed you, Mom. You know, and meeting him, that's attuning and going, yeah, you know, and so can you imagine when you do try something more, you have to feel that yucky feeling in your stomach, and you feel like you have to hide from me. You know, and then making it safe. You don't ever have to hide from me. We make mistakes. We all fall into different temptations. And how can we talk about it? You know, so even with family members, you know, again, it's removing the shame. We all fall victim to stuff. But if we have that like secrecy and we gotta hide, it doesn't make our kids, doesn't keep them from doing it. It helps them hide it. You know, not want to talk about it.
Just a quick comment about whoever was asking about family members. I think it actually helps bring it to reality because it's close. How my husband, his stepdad, and one of his brothers, highly addicted to marijuana. Smoke it, they grow it. And my daughter who goes here, when she was younger, I talked to her about that because she always wanted to know, why doesn't Uncle Buddy have a job? And why does dad act like that? And I don't really like him, I don't feel comfortable around him. And why doesn't he work either? Why can't he hold a job? And why this and that? And so I, sharing that with her and explaining to her that Uncle Buddy's a great guy, he's not a bad guy. He has kids, can't hold a job, can't work in his marriage work. He's tenant, this is the most important thing in his life. And, makes her realize, wow.
So what we try to do as well is connecting, and a family piece that we do with our program, in breaking down denial and getting families well, we really take a look at, with kids, how is substance abuse creating consequences in all these different areas of your life? In your relationships with your siblings, and most of the times the kids, they always say, oh, it didn't affect my sibling. Well, then we pull in the siblings and we talk to the siblings by themselves and give the siblings a chance to kind of share how it's affected them or what they've observed. And then when we do the sibling sessions, those are some of the most powerful sessions because, again, the kid's not going to listen to the parent when the parent opens their mouth about how they've been seeing their substance abuse affect them, but it carries weight when their sibling says something, And so the family piece, we take a look at also helping families create boundaries. And I'm going to go into that. So developing a home contract, figuring out, okay, it doesn't have to be to where my kid is dependent to where I start maybe randomly drug testing them, to make sure that they're doing what they say they're doing. This doesn't make you a bad parent doing that. It's keeping them accountable. They can even use that to fall back on, going, hey, to their friends with temptation, I can't risk doing that because my parents randomly throw in drug tests every now and again, and I'm not willing to lose my car, or I'm not willing to have to go to a program. Let your kids be able to use that as a fallback in dealing with temptation. And you can put reasonable consequences down when there is stuff that you find out with a dirty drug test. It doesn't have to be, as parents, like I said, we want to freak out and be like, you're done, your life is over, you've lost everything, but we know we're not going to do that. And but figuring out, okay, you know what, until you can pass the clean test, which it takes 2 weeks with our kits, here's some privileges that you've lost. You've lost your car for the time being, or you've lost your phone, or different things like that. And again, you're creating a level of discomfort for them so that they aren't going to continue. It makes it difficult for them to continue in that behavior. And even though they're going to be mad at you and they're going to tell you you're the only parent doing that, okay. I know, and I get emotional every time I say this, when I celebrate my sobriety birthday in December, every year I call and thank my mom and dad, and thank them for not giving up on me, because I know that why I got sober so young, the biggest part of it was because they were in my business. And when I was going to places, I wasn't always telling the truth, and so they would call and verify where I was. And most of the time I wasn't where I said I was going to be, or they would search the car, they would search my room, and again, it's like, I'm protecting you from you. Yeah.
So you said 2 weeks, so is that the THC you were talking about?
Yeah.
And that's in like the edibles and all?
Yes, so thank you for bringing that up. Yes, so THC with our drug testing kits, so it's measured in nanograms, and so everything but the last 50 nanograms is out in 12 to 15 days. The last 50 nanograms is another 12 to 15 days. That's why you hear the whole 30 days to get it out of your system. But with our drug testing kits, you can get them online, or even the same ones in the like Rite Aid or Walgreens. It's 12 to 15 days for it to be out of their system. Everything else is 48 hours. Yeah.
And I don't think, you can't test for vaping though, right?
You can, because of nicotine. Yeah, you can. You can buy testing kits that test for nicotine. Now, it's not going to, same thing with THC, it's not going to tell us the levels of the THC or nicotine, you'd actually have to go to a lab, and I'm not quite sure if the lab tells you the levels of nicotine, but they for sure tell you the levels of THC. So I get kids, this happens all the time. Well, it was just really potent stuff that I was smoking, and that's why it's still coming up with a positive test. You know, or they were hotboxing the car, I didn't do it, you know, and I'm like, okay, so let's have you go down to the lab and get your levels tested. Because they'll tell us exactly what the levels are, and if you didn't actually just recently do it, those levels are gonna be very low. And then they start to panic, right? Because they're like, all right, I smoked out of an apple yesterday, you know, like, you know, I literally had a kid do that in session, you know, because he knew, like, they're gonna go test my levels, and it's gonna show that they're really high, that I just recently smoked. So, the other thing I wanna leave you guys with is
How long did you say that THC is in your system?
12 to 15 days.
To test for it?
Yeah, to test for it, it should be clean within 12 to 15 days. And so keep in mind too, resources in the community, 12 steps, or you have access to hundreds of meetings in the community. They have young people's meetings for AA or NA. There's Al-Anon meetings, and there's meetings that are Al-Anon based for just parents. There's Ala-Teen meetings for siblings to be going to, okay? You can look all of this stuff up, and recovery happens on our website. And there's my email here. I have some cards up here. If after leaving here today you have questions or you need anything, please don't hesitate to call me, and I'll open it up for questions now. Yeah.
So my understanding was that at one of these last sessions that we had, that there was a resource where my girlfriend is getting drug tests that is significantly cheaper than when you buy them over the counter.
Rockland PD was selling them for, I think, like $5. I'm not sure.
We sell them for that amount too. So we have different panels. So there's a 5 panel that's $5, and then we have another panel that I think it's like even like a 13 panel of different things, and we sell that for $10. So you can go on our website and order them, but yeah, even through the police station, you can get them for a lot cheaper than what you're going to get them at Walgreens or Rite Aid.
And their website is amazing, you guys. They have links to all sorts of articles. They
Yeah.
have links to things
Yeah.
about mental health. I mean, it's a very well-done site.
And where are you located?
So we have offices in Fair Oaks, Roseville, Davis, and Walnut Creek.